What's going on? YouTube. Some of you are smulers, aren't you? Yes. Alright, so this is a redo of the Constitution Preamble video, okay? So, here we go. We're going to just run through the text right quick of the actual preamble, and then we may discuss it a little bit. So, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Now, that was right up there too. So, you know, you can kind of read it through there as we go. Now, talk a little bit about that. We the people of the United States. Well, that's obvious. It's us, the people of the United States. It's not anybody else. It's just the United States. Okay. Establish justice. Okay, well, that's pretty simple. We establish justice. In other words, people are going to pay for crimes that they commit. Okay. Ensure domestic tranquility. We haven't seen a whole lot of that lately, have we? Not if you look at the news, if you watch the news for a minute. I haven't seen a great deal of that, but provide for the common defense. Okay. Kind of goes back to security, making sure that you're secure, I'm secure in the whole 9 yards, and the defense of this nation. And we're going to get to that later when we get to some of the amendments and what have you. Promote the general welfare. Okay, now that's not talking about free money. Okay, that's a word that meant for just the betterment of a human being, the general welfare of that person. Is that person you know, and is that person generally taken care of with their liberties and what have you? And that's kind of how that's intended, not general welfare as in, oh, well, here's a monthly check for $1,000 or whatever. No, that ain't what that means. And you have to go back and you have to actually see what the way that speech was used in the days of our forefathers in order to actually properly interpret. The way that people have changed what words mean and phrases mean from then till now, you'd be amazed if you really looked at it. And secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity. So, secure the blessings of liberty. Okay, yes, liberty is a blessing. Okay. So, take that from that what you will. But again, it's still talking about security. Again, going back to the amendments later, to ourselves and our prosperity. So, in other words, the forefathers were saying they want everybody to be secure and prosper. Okay, they do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. For the United States of America, not for Iraq, or not for China, or not for Korea, or not for Japan, or not for any other nation. For the United States. So this Constitution applies to no one else other than United States citizens. It says that in the preamble. Okay? Just look at it right there. Bam. Does everybody forget the preamble? I don't know. But that's how I feel. Okay? And yes, I'm going to give you some of my opinion. Why not, right? Everybody else giving their opinion, I might as well give a little bit of mine. So, so that's the preamble. It actually did not take full effect, until 1789, when the Confederate Congress, when the Constitution took over the Articles of Confederation. That's what people also don't realize, is the term Confederacy. So when people are saying that the South, 100 years later, roughly 90 years later, or whatever, okay, we're separating from the Union because of, a lot of the stuff that they say slavery is the big one. The South was actually fighting for the Constitution, is what they were fighting for. States' rights. Okay, and we're going to get into that when we get into the amendments as well. So this gets really, because our original articles that ran this country were called the Articles of Confederation. Okay. And that's what they were kind of basing a lot of their stuff in the Civil War. The Civil War was not about slavery. They were fighting because Congress had already done some things that were actually taking away their states' rights. Okay, they were trying to implement regulations and things on cotton, and a lot of that goes back to North produced hemp. If you recall, you had hemp rope and there was hemp clothing. You can still go find a lot of the Union uniforms, and some of even the Confederacy uniforms were made from hemp. A lot of bedding and things like that back before then were made from hemp, but the cotton industry had started to really, really take off. Okay. I've heard people say, well, they had slaves. Well, the North had slaves too. They had slaves running the hemp stuff as well. It didn't have nothing to do with that. What it had to do was the North was losing ground on their hemp production, and they had no other place to go. So what they did was they lobbied to Congress to get laws in place to slow the production of cotton, to give the hemp manufacturing a leg up. You want to know why marijuana is illegal in this country? It's because of all this that was going on. It has nothing to do with prohibition or drugs or whatever. And I'm just telling you from a purely historical perspective. Okay, it has nothing to do with anything but the fact that when it came down to it, you had the North fighting the South over cotton versus hemp. The South was losing in Congress but the North was losing in production and supply because the South could produce cotton cheaper. Because of what? Not because of slavery, but because of the cotton gin. The cotton gin actually allowed for them to produce cotton at a usable cotton at a much faster rate than anything that the North had that they could use for hemp. And because of that, the cost had severely dropped on cotton, which made it more appealing. Plus, hemp feels a little closer to like wool. It's a heavier, little denser fabric. Okay, cotton is, it's soft, and people like that, and they didn't have to make it as thick to be warm, and it was fairly fire retardant. It's not fireproof, but it is kind of fire retardant. It breathes. People liked it. Now, hemp was warmer and hot. So, but again, the cotton was much more successful because of things that were being invented, like the cotton gin. And then all this stuff started happening in Congress, and of course the southern states were like, this is BS. Why are we being regulated and they're not being regulated? Don't we have states' rights? Don't we have individual rights to be able to do, So then the war began, and it was like a year after the war began before Lincoln actually said, hey, okay, we're going to do this. If we're going to do this, we're just going to go all out, and we're going to go ahead and make it as bad as it can be, and we're just basically going to free all the slaves. Okay, and that's not a bad thing. Okay, I'm not saying that, but for that time period, it was, making things worse. And Lincoln is even on record saying, if not freeing a single slave would end the war, he would have done that. That he wanted the war to end. So, I think part of it is the Civil War is not being taught in school the way that it used to get taught in school to any major kind of degree whatsoever. I've got kids. I talk to them, and it's not being taught nowhere near what it used to be taught. Okay, whenever I was in school, a lot of these things that I'm telling you were things that were being taught. Just a FYI, Congress, like 50 years ago, maybe even longer than that ago, I'd have to look at the exact date, actually said that all of those soldiers that fought for the Confederacy were still United States soldiers that fought in World War I and World War II. Take from that what you will. So, I do think we need to honor every American that's ever fought. Both Union and the Southern, the Confederate soldiers. Okay? It doesn't matter. But I think that's it for today. But we'll see you in the funny papers.